This video explores the abandoned online forums of the early 2000s. These are not just inactive websites, they are digital time capsules. Frozen in the moment, their communities faded away. We will be looking into the structure of these early online societies, the reasons for their mass desertion, and the strange, sometimes poignant, artifacts they left behind for anyone who knows where to look for them. The topic is deeply relevant because these forums represent a foundational era of internet culture that has been largely. Understanding them helps us appreciate how online communication has evolved, from decentralized, niche communities to the centralized platforms we use today. They offer a unique window into the social dynamics, interests, and even the language of a period just before the dawn of modern social media as we know it. Throughout this exploration, we will cover the context of the early 2000s internet, the technological and social factors that led to the decline of forums, and what can be found within their archives today. We will examine specific examples of these digital ruins and discuss their significance. This analysis is grounded in digital archaeology, aiming to understand rather than to sensationalize the past, providing a clear and factual overview. This channel is dedicated to investigating the more obscure corners of internet history. Years of research into digital preservation and the study of online subcultures have provided a unique perspective on these forgotten spaces. The goal is to present this information clearly and respectfully, acknowledging the real people who once called these forums their digital home and built the communities that thrived there for a time. To truly grasp why these digital ghost towns feel so haunting and significant, one must first understand the landscape in which they were born. The internet of the early 2000s was a fundamentally different world from the one we inhabit now, operating on a different set of principles and fostering a unique kind of community that is now exceptionally rare. The early internet was a far more fragmented and text-based environment. Before the ubiquity of high-speed broadband, users often connected via slow dial-up modems. This technological limitation fostered communities built around text and simple images, where content was consumed slowly and deliberately. Anonymity was the default, with users identified by usernames and avatars, creating a sense of detachment from the offline world that encouraged uninhibited expression. At the heart of this era were bulletin board systems, or forums, powered by software like vBulletin and PHPBB. They were structured around threads and posts. Users would create a topic, and others would reply sequentially, creating long, evolving conversations that could span weeks or even years. Hierarchies of moderators and administrators maintained order, creating a self-contained social structure with its own rules and leadership within each individual website. This structure led to varied perceptions of these spaces to their members. They were invaluable hubs for connection and information, digital havens where they could connect with like-minded individuals from all over the globe. To outsiders, however, some of these forums could appear as opaque. Unregulated digital frontiers, hosting everything from harmless hobbyist discussions to more controversial and unmoderated content, reflecting a truly free but chaotic web. A fitting analogy for a forum is a small town's community center, which contains multiple, distinct clubhouses. Each subforum was its own club, dedicated to a specific interest, complete with its own unique culture, in-jokes, and social etiquette. A user could be a respected elder in one subforum, while being a complete newcomer in another, all within the same overarching website, creating a rich and varied social experience. This highly specific, self-contained structure was both the source of their strength and the seed of their eventual decline. While they fostered incredibly tight-knit and passionate communities, they were ill-equipped to compete with the changing technological landscape. This inherent vulnerability is precisely what led to them being left behind, preserved as digital ruins for future explorers to find and study. The primary reason for the mass abandonment of forums was the technological and social shift known as the Great Migration. This refers to the gradual but relentless movement of users from decentralized forums to centralized social media platforms. The rise of services like Facebook, Twitter, and Reddit offered a more integrated, seamless, and user-friendly experience that older forum software simply could not match, pulling users away from their smaller communities. Concrete examples of this decay are plentiful. Fan forums for television shows that ended in the mid-2000s now sit frozen in time. Their last posts analyzing a series finale from 15 years ago, hardware modification forums for obsolete technology like old MP3 players or contained vast libraries of knowledge that are now almost entirely irrelevant. their user bases having long since moved on to newer devices and different platforms. Of course, this migration was not the only cause of death. Many forums collapsed for more internal reasons. Some were shuttered when their administrators could no longer afford the server hosting costs, a common issue for hobbyist-run sites. Others were torn apart by intense internal drama, power struggles between moderators, or community schisms that fractured the user base, causing a rapid and terminal decline from within. It is important to understand that this process was rarely a sudden event. It was typically a slow, protracted bleed over many months or even years. The decline would begin with fewer new posts, followed by key community members becoming inactive. A loyal few would often try to keep the conversations going, their posts becoming more infrequent until one day the final message was posted without ceremony. As the active users departed and the moderator's digital keys were metaphorically hung up for the last time, these websites did not simply vanish from the internet. They entered a new phase of existence, a state of suspended animation and slow digital decay. They transformed from living communities into something else entirely static, silent archives of a forgotten era of online life. Venturing into an abandoned forum is an act of digital archaeology. The first thing one often notices is the outdated design clashing colors, pixelated banners, and layouts optimized for screen resolutions that are no longer in use. Conversations are frozen mid-sentence, with the last post often dated over a decade ago. It is a digital space where time has officially and completely stopped, leaving everything exactly as it was. One of the most common and poignant discoveries is the last post. Sometimes it is a mundane question that was never answered. In other cases, it's a final, heartfelt goodbye from a user announcing their departure, unaware that their message would be the very last one ever posted on the site. These final entries serve as unintentional epitaphs for the entire community, marking the precise moment the lights went out. These archives are more than just corrupted data and broken code. They are profoundly human spaces. They contain records of friendships being formed, heated arguments over trivial matters, expressions of joy, and moments of shared grief and support. Every thread is a ghost of a real human interaction, a preserved echo of a connection that once existed between people who may have never met in the real world. The passage of time is also evident in the technical decay of the site itself. This digital decay, often called bit rot, manifests in various ways. Images hosted on now-defunct third-party services like PhotoBucket or ImageShack appear as broken links, leaving visual gaps in tutorials and conversations. The underlying database may be corrupted, rendering certain threads or user profiles completely inaccessible. A slow erasure of the information itself. This unique combination of perfect preservation and gradual decay creates a powerful, almost eerie atmosphere that defines the experience of exploring these sites. The silence is palpable, and it is within this silent, frozen landscape that some of the most fascinating and sometimes unsettling digital mysteries can be found, waiting in the archives for a curious visitor to stumble upon them. The static nature of these forums means that many threads were left permanently unresolved. They hold unanswered questions, unfinished stories, and unsolved arguments, frozen forever in their final state. Users might have been in the middle of a heated debate or sharing progress on a long-term project, only for the conversation to be cut short by the forum's eventual abandonment, leaving a permanent digital cliffhanger for anyone who reads it. A recurring phenomenon is the user who simply vanished. These individuals, often prominent and active members of the community, would post regularly for years and then suddenly stop without any explanation. Their final post, often entirely unremarkable, becomes a focal point of speculation among modern-day explorers. These threads leave behind a lingering mystery about what happened to them, a question that will likely never be answered. In a more somber discovery, these forums sometimes serve as unintentional memorials. There are documented cases where a user's final post is later followed by news of their passing, shared by a real-life friend or family member. The user's post history then becomes a public archive of their thoughts and interests, a digital monument to a life preserved in the code of a website they once frequented. Exploring these personal histories raises complex ethical questions. Is it right to browse through these deeply personal, decadal conversations? Some argue it is a form of digital grave robbing, an invasion of privacy for people who never intended their words to be analyzed years later. Others see it as a vital form of cultural preservation, akin to reading old letters. If you have an opinion on this, I would be interested to read it in the comments. These individual stories, both mysterious and poignant, are just one layer of what is preserved in these digital ruins. Beyond the personal tales, these forums contain the fossilized remains of entire online subcultures. Many of these digital societies, with their own unique languages and customs, have been almost completely forgotten, existing now only within these abandoned archives. Many abandoned forums were once the exclusive homes of incredibly niche subcultures. These were digital tribes with their own unique slang, complex inside jokes, and deeply ingrained social norms that would be completely incomprehensible to an outsider. The entire culture existed only within the confines of the forum, and when the community died, the culture was effectively lost to time, preserved only as a textual fossil for future digital historians. For example, imagine a forum dedicated to the hobby of circuit bending, the creative short-circuiting of old electronic toys to create new musical instruments. Such a community would have had its own specialized terminology, legendary figures known for their unique creations, and detailed guides that are now found nowhere else on the internet. The death of the forum means the effective death of that specific community's collective knowledge. These spaces were also fertile ground for early internet culture, before content went viral globally in a matter of hours. Memes and online trends grew slowly and organically within these smaller, insulated communities. Many of the image macros, catchphrases, and video trends that later became mainstream have their origins in the esoteric discussions of these forgotten forums, representing a kind of primordial soup of digital culture. Recognizing the historical value of these spaces, digital preservation groups like the Internet Archive and the volunteer-driven archive team work to save them. They use web crawlers to create copies of these forums before their servers are shut down for good, ensuring that their contents are not lost forever. This work is a constant race against time, as websites can disappear without any warning. However, not all forums are left to fade away gracefully or be preserved by archivists. A significant number have met a much more abrupt and deliberate end. They have been actively and permanently erased from the web, often for reasons that are far more complex than a simple decline in user activity, leaving behind nothing but a blank page and speculation. While most forums simply fade into obscurity, some are intentionally wiped from existence. This active deletion is often a calculated business decision. A company might shut down and completely erase the official forums for a failed product, to better control the public narrative, or to remove a repository of negative feedback and technical complaints. In these cases, years of user-generated content and community history are destroyed with a single command. A common example occurs in the video game industry. When the multiplayer game servers are shut down, the developer may also choose to delete the official community forums associated with it. This erases thousands of pages of player strategies, community-created guides, and social histories, effectively wiping the game's cultural footprint from the internet. All that remains are fragmented memories and perhaps a few archives pages on the Wayback Machine. In more sinister cases, forums are deleted to conceal controversial or illicit activities. A forum that served as a hub for a gray market or a community engaged in legally dubious discussions might be scrubbed by its administrators to avoid attracting legal attention. This deliberate erasure turns the forum's former existence into a matter of rumor and speculation, with its true nature and content lost forever. This fragility of digital information has led experts to warn of a potential digital dark age. Unlike a physical book, which can survive for centuries, digital data stored on a centralized server is incredibly vulnerable. It can be lost to hardware failure, a missed payment on a hosting bill, or a deliberate act of deletion, causing entire histories to vanish in an instant without a physical trace. The reality of these erased histories and the inherent fragility of all digital information presents us with a critical challenge. It forces us to consider what we can learn from the digital ruins that do survive, and how the lessons gleaned from this bygone era of the internet can be applied to the digital world we all currently inhabit today. One practical takeaway from exploring these digital ruins is a greater awareness of our own digital footprint. The communities we participate in today, whether on Discord, Reddit, or other platforms, are creating archives of their own. It is worth considering how these conversations and the data we share will be perceived in the future and how fragile these new digital spaces might ultimately prove to be. For those interested in exploring this topic further, legitimate resources are available. The Internet Archive's Wayback Machine is an essential tool, allowing you to view safe snapshots of these old websites. Adishtale. Online communities like the subreddit or dead forums are dedicated to discovering and discussing these abandoned digital spaces, providing a starting point for your own explorations. It is important to be realistic about what you might find. While mysteries do exist, the experience of browsing these forums is more often a quiet, meditative look into a past era of the web. The value is not in discovering a shocking secret, but in observing how people connected and shared knowledge before the internet became what it is today. Ultimately, these digital ghosts offer a powerful lesson about the evolution of online community. They stand as a testament to a time when the internet was a collection of distinct, user-built destinations rather than a few centrally controlled platforms. If you remember being part of an old forum community, I encourage you to share its name and your experience in the comments below. These abandoned forums are much more than just dead websites filled with outdated code. They are digital monuments to the universal human need for connection and community. They remind us that behind every username and every post was a real person contributing to a shared space, building a small but meaningful corner of the internet, one conversation at a time.